Over the weekend, we started to get more of a sense, perhaps, of the Chinese point of view on this. Play it from the Chinese side. Do they really feel pressure to make a deal at all?
Well, I think as time passes by, it becomes clear what was the exchange here. Apparently, the Trump administration want to maintain the tariff at the same time, wanting a numerical target from China to reduce the trade balance. So the Chinese side, of course, cannot accept and will not accept any trade agreement while still allowing the tariff in place, because that will basically represent a huge loss of face. They have a domestic audience to play with too. So it's just like Trump wants to play with Trump's domestic political base. The Chinese government have a domestic audience that they need to take care of. That's why I think this is a bottom line. And the bottom line is that they cannot allow the tariff to remain in place while they have any kind of a deal. So the deal is preconditioned on American removal of all tariffs.
That is what the reporting is suggesting at this point. But what does that say about resolving this dispute anytime within the next foreseeable future as a practical matter? Because President Trump is clearly very enamored of, really committed to those tariffs. He's sold it to his base. He said we're going to keep them in place until really you've complied. As you say, the Chinese now, it's very clear that's a matter of principle with them. They have to come off. I'm not sure where the middle ground is between those two positions.
I do not know. I do not know there is any middle ground. But I think President Trump, if you look at Larry Kudlow basically admitted that if you do a tariff, basically it hurts both. And also he clarified that it's not the Chinese who pays the tariff; it's American consumers and businesses that pay the tariff. But it doesn't matter. I do think that this tariff is still a pressuring tactic to get the Chinese to agree with American demands. They try to get as much as possible, but the Chinese also understand that the cost is hugely it's a huge if they don't have a deal. So I think they do have a strong incentive to get something done. I think the time will be when Xi and Trump meet in Japan. That's about a month's time.
For me, Chen, the story also comes down to what tools does China have? You come inside the Bloomberg, the chart I'm going to show everybody is the S&P, the blue line, but the white line is dollar-yuan, and you can see the different devaluations that we saw back in 2015 when the yuan fell, and then back in 2018 when the yuan fell again, the dollar shot up. How much will China be willing to let the yuan appreciate to make up any depreciate, to make up any loss from trade?
Well, it depends on the trade progress. I think that's one of the weapons that the Chinese government has in order to diffuse the downward pressure on manufacturing businesses. Of course, if you have no deal, then anything goes. But the problem here is that they have to walk a very fine line. On one hand, they're going to tell the American negotiators, yes, they do have a bunch of tools in their toolbox, but at the same time, they want to show that they are serious about talks. So I think they are walking on a fine line. Right now, the currency depreciation is not a huge deal. It's only 6.9. But if you have a whole out trade war, we're talking about 550 billion of Chinese importers being slapped on high tariff, I think the Chinese currency is going to go down a lot. That's one way to deal with that. I'm pretty sure that they are talking about that. At the same time, they will stimulate domestic demand. They can cut interest rates, let the market force to play out, let the market force driving down the Chinese yuan. That is also a possibility. So the thing can get very nasty on both sides, I would assume.
We know well, Chen, the pressure being put on the president from, for example, farmers here who are hurting. What about over in China? What kind of political pressure might there be on President Xi as some of these producers really get squeezed with 25% tariffs that really may even put them out of business and may redirect some of that business to Southeast Asia?
Well, I think they are still in the state of shock. And, if you talk to the Chinese manufacturers, I have some friends who are actually in the manufacturing business. If you talk to them, they're still in the state of shock. They thought that their government is going to make a deal happen. Everybody was assuming that the deal would be happening, but all of a sudden we have this. So they don't know what to do. They're kind of paralyzed right now. I think the situation is not that great. Of course, the Chinese government is thinking maybe we'll have to redirect the Chinese sales to Europe. Maybe we're going to go do this and do that. But I think the key point here is they need to ease domestic monetary and fiscal policy in order to cushion the downward move in aggregate demand. That is obviously need to do.
Yeah, what the U.S. actually can't do.